It has been one heck of a year in AI. At the beginning of this year, I had, I think, about 4,000 subscribers, and I've just hit 100,000 subscribers. And that is due in large part to artificial intelligence. And of course, ChatGPT has exploded on the scene, and it's been a year of intense drama, most recently with the firing and sudden rehiring of Sam Altman. But we're not going to talk about the people of AI. We're going to talk about the revolutions of AI, the things that I am looking forward to in 2024. Now, before we get started, one thing I want to say is what I'm going to do is I'm looking at kind of what is happening today. So all of this is rooted in trends and news that has come out recently. But what I'm really going to focus on is kind of some of the stuff that I expect to see in 2024. Take it with a grain of salt. As with all predictions, it's basically a gamble. So let's dive right in. First and foremost is AI being integrated more into mental health and relationships. So there's already been plenty of stories out there about people using chatbots to learn about relationships and get better at communication and that sort of thing. But after some of the videos that I've made, I've had people reach out to me, including clinical psychologists, researchers, forensic psychologists, all kinds of people. And so, not just from a user perspective, but also from a research perspective, I suspect that AI is, in the long run, going to be just completely game changing for the way that we approach mental health and relationships, and not just on an individual level. So, for instance, one thing that I've had my criticisms of Anthropic's Claude chatbot, but one thing that it's incredibly good at is dream interpretation. And I suspect that those kinds of abilities are only going to get better over time, where these machines, these tools will help you figure out what's going on in your life, what's going on in your head, what's going on in your relationships, and also the fact that it's already being studied by governments and universities means that the deployment of these technologies is going to pick up and accelerate. I am looking forward to 20 years from now, a Freakonomics episode unpacking the long-term impacts, the positive long-term impacts of generative AI on mental health and relationships. And I think that this is really going to take off in 2024. I think we're going to start seeing more studies being published about the beneficial use of AI in mental health and relationships and communication. I think we're going to start seeing best practices being published. And I think we're going to start seeing people really starting to take this seriously on a clinical and societal and epidemiological level. So, in the long run, the total impact of AI on mental health and relationships, I think, is difficult to oversell, and I think that we're going to really see mass adoption in the form of more smartphone apps, more products and services, but also government research and endorsements. So this is going to be pretty big, and I think 2024 is going to be a breakout year for mental health and relationships with respect to artificial intelligence. Next is content moderation. So as a YouTuber, obviously there's comments, there's, I've got Discord servers, there's Reddit and all sorts of other things. YouTube, fortunately, has announced that they are going to start implementing more and more AI into content moderation. And I hope that plenty of other platforms start to do this as well. And there's all kinds of ways that content moderation can be done, which by and large is done kind of reactively and by hand. So, back in the day, and probably still to this day, but I don't use Facebook anymore, their content moderators were largely humans. And so these were people that were constantly, just for 8 hours a day, looking at material that had been flagged. And they'd seen all kinds of awful things, from depictions of violence to like sex trafficking and all sorts of stuff. And like there are reports of people getting PTSD just from being content moderators. And of course, like if you follow the news, the same happens on Pornhub, but they have like a tiny like core of content moderators, and so there's like months and months of backlog. And who wants to watch porn all day? Like that's just like, especially if you're looking at the gross stuff that gets flagged. Anyways, so fact checking, disinformation and misinformation campaign detection, because one of the things that we're afraid of is generative AI being used in troll farms and botnets for political manipulation. But a technology that can be used to spread misinformation can be just as easily used to detect that kind of stuff and do fact checking and just automatically filter out this kind of stuff. Hate speech, community shaping. I actually have had people reach out to me that are working on using these AI tools to help shape and push narratives and shape online communities, so that that's something that can be automated algorithmically rather than being done by hand. I've tried this myself. I created a few chatbots that were connected to my Discord server to help with like auto moderation and steering things, but they really got repetitive, and I don't have the time and energy to research it and practice it myself. But I think that 2024 is going to see a huge wave of AI based content moderation, which in the long run I think is finally going to solve the problem of toxicity on the internet. Meaning, if someone rage tweets or whatever, then one, you can detect what that is about, and you can deliberately kind of modify the conversation, and rather than toxicity being amplified, you can reduce radicalization and polarization with the aid of AI to benevolent ends. Now, of course, the flip side of that is that you can use AI to deliberately fan the flames. So hopefully, we see content moderation as the antidote to radical toxicity. Material science is going to be a huge thing in 2024 as well. We've seen Google DeepMind publish their GNOME paper, which was, what was it, like 2.2 million new materials, new crystals were discovered, and so I expect this kind of thing is going to accelerate. And like math, it's not immediately obvious that material science affects everything, but material science affects everything. If it includes metals or plastics or proteins, it affects material science, or material science affects it, rather. I've got that backwards. But everything from computer technology, such as getting down to 2 nanometer, production methods, rapidly producing new medicines, all the equipment that is used to synthesize medicines or detect medicines. Like, all of these things are going to be accelerated by material science, and material science is being accelerated by artificial intelligence. And this is also part of a virtuous cycle. So I've talked about this. It's been a while since I've talked about this, but the combination of better AI and better material science and better math forms a virtuous cycle that only serves to accelerate AI even more. Because the better material science you have, the better computers you have, which leads to faster AI, more AI, higher density data, that sort of stuff. And so any acceleration that you get in material science translates, it does take a while, because the time that it takes to design a new chip and take it from hypothetical design to manufacture is something like, I think, 5 years. It might be less now, it might be more. But so it'll be a little while before we start to feel it. However, I think that 2024 is going to be a breakout year in material science broadly, and it'll be driven largely due to artificial intelligence. And also, material science is one of the key things that will help us unlock things like sustainable energy, nuclear fusion. Quantum computing is largely a material science problem. So 2024 is going to be, like I said, a huge year for this. I expect to see some really big breakthroughs. We might not see the practical application yet, but I'm really excited to see what happens in material science driven by AI in 2024. So synthetic data has been in the news lately. Namely, there's rumors that OpenAI and others are creating and training models that are trained on 60% synthetic data. I think one of the rumors is 90% synthetic data. And the thing is if it's just text, that's one thing. But we're talking about this flywheel that, as machines get better at generating synthetic data and then being trained on synthetic data, you basically have an unlimited amount of data with which to train on any modality, any format. So we see that synthetic data is being used to train self-driving cars. Most of the images that you see on the internet today, well, maybe not most, but something like 60% of them are now generated by AI. Soon, music, movies, images, everything is going to be generated by AI. And that is all going to, again, feed back into a virtuous cycle where the more data you have to train on and the more you have to sift through in order to create very, very good data sets, means that this is going to be a data flywheel that accelerates very fast. And also, I predict, personally, this is just kind of reading the tea leaves, and if you saw the news, the reason that I picked Sarah Silverman here is because her class action lawsuit against OpenAI was grievously hamstrung by the judge, which is something that I predicted in a previous video, having talked to some of my lawyer friends, there's just a lot of the case that was just like on the face, just wouldn't stand up to scrutiny. But anyways, so we'll see how it's litigated. We have yet to see AI copyright law get litigated by the Supreme Court, as far as I know. But copyright is basically being gutted in real time. And I predict that if you have this data flywheel where most data is synthetic, it's generated by AI, the marginal cost of data, even highly valuable data like a novel or a movie, approaches zero. And I think that we're seeing the death of copyright. Now we did see that the Writers Guild and the Actors Guild, they are like, oh well, human contribution only. But I kind of see it going the same way as like photographers were attacked by painters, and then photographers attacked digital artists, and digital artists are attacking AI. Like this is just the next natural progression. So we're just seeing another transition in the creation of digital of entertainment in general, but data more broadly. To cap it off, 2024 I think is when we'll see some of that litigation happening, but also we're going to see that data flywheel kick it up into high gear. Okay, so the next thing is we're starting to see more and more interest in medical and clinical deployments of AI. So again, because of some of the videos that I've made, I've had all kinds of people. I've got a whole bunch of physicians, surgeons, all kinds of people, even some of my Patreon supporters. They're so excited about the things that I'm talking about that they decided to jump in, and I've actually connected some of them. But the thing is that AI has the potential to really revolutionize healthcare. One of the more extreme predictions that I've made is that I suspect that hospitals are going to go the way of the dinosaur. Probably within 20 years, we'll see. When you combine rejuvenation therapies with robot doctors, I suspect that the need for hospitals is going to drop drastically. But in the short term, there's already evidence that AI is accelerating diagnostics. It's increasing the accuracy of diagnosis. It's also being used for patient engagement. So a friend of mine, he was working at a startup that one of the things that they did was allocating, like reading all your medical charts and ensuring that you had, the right medication and the right nurse and everything like that. And so adding AI as a kind of like clinical social worker that's reading all patients' notes and all doctors' notes and making sure everyone knows what they need, we're seeing that generative AI is already helping in the clinical setting. And I think that is going to, again, really accelerate in 2024 just for purely economic reasons. If you're a hospital administrator and you hear that, this generative AI tool can help, reduce the cost of billing, by 80% and reduce the incidence of getting sued for medical malpractice by 12%, they're going to do it just by sheer economic pressure alone. And this is going to have compounding effects because it's like, the more you use a thing and the more valuable it becomes, the more investment it gets and the better it gets and the more it gets integrated. And I think 2024 is going to be a breakout year for the integration of AI into the clinical space. Oh, and also I've had like talks and interviews with everyone from practicing clinicians to medical students. Medical students are super jazzed about this because some of them are afraid of like being replaced. But I've talked to some medical students that are like, oh my God, please help us. We need all the help we can get. So I think that it's going to be a net gain for everyone regarding AI and medicine in 2024. So video generation. At the beginning of this year, Meta AI released their really kind of dodgy, really kind of almost dreamlike video generators. And in the space of less than a year, we're getting up to, I think we have 1080p video generation now. It still has some artifacts, but that was an exponential acceleration in terms of quality of video generation. And now you've probably seen trends on the internet, like on LinkedIn and Reddit and stuff, where people are posting like movie trailers, like cinematic, almost perfect movie trailers that are pretty high quality. And it's getting easier and easier to make this. And this is one thing that I think it will probably be considered a solved problem this time next year. So if you remember when DALL-E 2 first came out, it was kind of garbage. Like the dreams or the images were kind of dreamlike. They were blocky. They were broken. DALL-E 3 is a quantum leap forward. Midjourney and a whole bunch of others, Stable Diffusion, are all coming out, and they're all improving very quickly. So I think this time next year, like image generation, like this stock image, there will be no demand for humans to generate this kind of stuff. Adobe is leading the charge in terms of replacing the stock image industry. Instead of photographers, it's all going to be AI generated before too long. And likewise, I think that video generation, because video is just a series of images, right? I think that video generation is going to be not long behind that, and I think this time next year I'll probably be working on creating like a Hollywood grade version of my novel, doing it all by myself. That's what I'm really looking forward to in 2024 with video generation. To extend the conversation around AI and entertainment, we're already seeing mods being built to integrate like ChatGPT with Skyrim and stuff like that. But I think that we're a stone's throw away from the big game studios and the big game engines just creating native integrations with generative AI. Now, obviously, generative AI is still relatively expensive to use, but the cost is coming down fast. And I would not be surprised if this time next year you have games that have NPCs that you can just put on your headset and you can just have a natural conversation with the NPCs. And so, like, I've heard that CD Projekt Red is abandoning Cyberpunk 2077, but if they ever make a sequel, I fully expect to be able to just like talk to Johnny Silverhand or whatever, like real time, just natural sounding conversation. And that's just on the surface. That's just having conversations with NPCs. Beyond that, I'm looking forward to automatically generating narratives. So having completely dynamic and adaptive worlds that respond to your unique decisions within that world, and that the quests and the storylines and the character lines all adapt in real time. That's something that I'm really looking forward to in the gaming space. And I think that we're going to see the first versions of this being commercially released in 2024. And again, this is just the beginning. Longevity research, I suspect, is going to really be kicked into high gear in 2024. A lot of you probably just saw that the X Prize announced what is it, $101 million to accelerate longevity research. The Biden administration just created a package that I think it was like $2.4 billion over the next 10 years for and one of the explicitly stated goals was to overcome aging, to basically treat aging as a disease that needs to be cured. And so 2024 is going to be a huge breakout year for this, and it's going to be like the temperature of this is going to be turned up to 11 by breakthroughs such as Google DeepMind's AlphaFold 2. I'm looking forward to AlphaFold 3 if they're working on it, or whatever the successor technology is. Now, obviously, just simulating proteins is only one part of it. I've talked about in previous videos that the entire metabolome, so all the metabolites and all the respiratory and metabolic processes that happen in the body, there are literally hundreds of thousands of substances in the human body alone, on top of 3 billion base pairs, on top of microbiomes, on top of epigenetics. So we do have a ways to go before we solve all of these problems, but the investment is there, and when investment is there, solutions follow. That's just the way it goes. And as of right now, there are, as far as I know, there are no scientific or engineering barriers to overcome. It's mostly just about the data. Like, we have the premise, we know how to simulate these things, and we know how to get more accurate, but the volume of data and the amount of processing that needs to be done is the primary thing that's prohibitively expensive right now. But you go back to the material science thing that accelerates that. Well, if the GPUs get cheaper and faster, and all the sensors and other lab equipment gets cheaper and faster, you get those compounding returns. And so I think 2024 is going to be a breakout year where people, I have said that we're probably already in longevity escape velocity, meaning, and so the definition of longevity escape velocity is that the life expectancy goes up per year of more than 1 year per year. So for those that are young enough and healthy enough, I suspect we're already in longevity escape velocity. So net result is, I think 2024, people are going to start taking the concept of longevity escape velocity more seriously, and that we're going to all realize, yeah, we're in it. Math and logic. So much hullabaloo has been made of Q-star and the other leaks recently. But more broadly, math and formal logic is being studied in deep learning. And One thing that the whole Q star thing has helped to shine a light on is that generating text and planning and reasoning, that's one thing, but math and logic is like the other half of the puzzle to get to AGI. And when you think about what is machine learning, what is AGI, what is computer science, what is material science, it all boils down to math. Math is the underpinning language of all of these things. And so now we have language models that have mastered language, um, at least on certain scales. They're still not good at writing full length novels in one shot, but that's coming soon. So when you have these same or similar models that master math and logic to the achieve 99th percentile performance on math and logic compared to humans, then you have a machine that is like, okay, well, it can do things that most humans can't, and it understands all the rudiments, all the fundamental abilities that are required for scientific advancement. So one of the benchmarks that people have, and it's kind of tongue in cheek, but there is some merit to it, is like when AI discovers novel physics, then you know that it's like game over, because once you're able to do that, once you're able to like either create a paradigm shift in math and or physics, then it's like, okay, like humans become irrelevant very quickly, at least partially, in the advancement of science. So 2024, I think, is going to be a huge breakout year for math and logic in the area of artificial intelligence, and this is going to be another component that feeds into that virtuous cycle that accelerates everything even faster. So this is what you might say is the ramp up to singularity. I'm still personally skeptical about singularity, but certainly we seem like we're still in an acceleration phase. The only question is, how long will that acceleration phase last? And then finally, number 10, AGI in 2024. So I am standing firm on my prediction that by September 2024, so about 10 months from now, we will almost certainly have basically any basic definition of AGI will probably be satisfied. And there are 5 primary trends that I'm looking at when I make this prediction. So first, multimodality. Integrating text, audio, video, embodiment data, and other kinds of data into transformers, math and logic, language, all of this stuff. When you look at all the modalities being crammed into transformers today, it becomes very obvious that we're literally running out of the different, not just amount of data, but the types of data that we can train these things on. And so once you have models that are trained on literally all of human data, like there's not much else you can do. So that is one of the main trends that's coming. I expect that we'll have some pretty significant algorithmic breakthroughs, and if not like step function changes, at least lots of incremental breakthroughs around multimodality that are going to give us a fundamentally new appreciation for the capabilities of transformer models by this time next year. Next up is autonomous agents. So things like Microsoft AutoGen, some of my projects that I'm running. Agents are the new operating system. They're the new daemon. Autonomous agents and autonomous agent swarms, I think, are going to be how AGI manifests. It's not going to be, a single monolithic robot. And if you do have a single monolithic robot, it's going to have a swarm of agents in its head, all debating and doing different parts of it. So I think that we've figured out, kind of from a software perspective, how AGI is going to be deployed. I will stand by that prediction right now. And again, I didn't even predict it. I often point to Mass Effect and the Geth. So I think the Geth is kind of the version of AGI we're going to ultimately get, where even if you do have a single platform, there's many, many agents running in that platform. And some of those agents are going to be running in the cloud. Some of them are going to be running locally. They can move around, that sort of thing. I already mentioned logic integration. So adding math and logic to the current linguistic abilities, I think, is going to be a game changer with algorithms like Q-star and whatever else is going on behind the scenes. All of this, however, is going to feed back into another virtuous cycle, which is that the more capable AI gets, the more it can participate in its own research. So the Qualia leak talked about how the AGI machine made recommendations to change its own engine. And while I personally feel like the Qualia paper is debunked, I know researchers who are actively using AI to help with their research. There are plenty of people using AI to help with their research, and the more capable the AI becomes, the more useful it is and the faster it goes. And so that's another part of the flywheel, is that the more the AI can help, the faster it all goes, the more capabilities it expands to, the faster it all goes. And then the last bit of information is investment surge. I think investment in AI is basically doubling year over year right now. And if not, it's close. And that could, if that trend even remotely stays the same, even if investment only goes up 30% year over year or 50% year over year, that is like exponential growth in terms of how much investment we're seeing towards AI. And again, where the money goes, results follow. And so, because of all that, yeah, I think that we're going to see AGI in 2024. Now, there's probably going to be some limitations. It might be too expensive to run. There might be things that humans are still better at. It's also going to take time to integrate these with government systems, with business systems. It's going to take time to deploy applications that benefit from AGI. But I do suspect we're going to see all this coming in 2024. So this is why I am super excited for 2024. Thanks for watching. I hope you got a lot out of this. Like, subscribe, etc., etc. Also consider jumping over on my Patreon. There's 2 tiers. The $5 tier gets you access to the Discord community, as well as some exclusive content. And then the $50 tier gets you access to the masterclass sessions, as well as some additional exclusive content or QA one-on-ones, those sorts of things. But yeah, so hop on over, sign up now, because I will be raising the price for my Patreon subscriptions at some point in 2024. But if you jump in now, you can get locked in at the current price. So thanks for watching. Have a good one. And yeah, have a happy December. And let's close out 2023 better than it opened. Cheers.